Welcome back. Last night, we introduced you to Rex Tillerson, the CEO of the biggest oil company on earth, ExxonMobil. The company is now on the forefront of a fracking revolution in the U.S., and Mr. Tillerson is leading the charge.
There has not been a documented case of substantial or even, I would argue, insignificant contamination of fresh water as a result of hydraulic fracturing. Now, what I say to people is, you know, with 1 million data points over 50 years, if it was a problem, don't you think we would have figured that out by now?
Maybe. But it appears Mr. Tillerson will only lead this fracking revolution as long as it stays far away from his own backyard. As the Wall Street Journal first reported, Tillerson's now joined a lawsuit along with his neighbors to stop the construction of a 160-foot water tower in Bartonville, Texas. That's a suburb of Dallas. Now, the tower is adjacent to Mr. Tillerson's rather large 83-acre horse ranch, and it could supply water to a nearby fracking site. As you can see, well, it's not that pretty. Mr. Tillerson and his neighbors, who include former House Majority Leader Dick Armey, argue that the water tower's unsightly appearance is at odds with their wishes. Can you blame them? Quote, each of the homeowners built or purchased their homes in Bartonville to live in an upscale community free of industrial properties, tall buildings, and other structures that might devalue their properties and adversely impact the rural lifestyle they sought to enjoy. And that's problematic for Tillerson and his neighbors because, as their lawsuit states, the company that owns the tower could sell water to oil and gas explorers for fracking shale formations, leading to traffic with heaving trucks, creating noise nuisances and traffic hazards. That's also reasonable sounding. So Rex Tillerson's all about fracking just as long as all the ugly trappings that come along with it, that are really built into it, are nowhere near his property. Now, the attorney representing Mr. Tillerson and his neighbors is trying to distance his clients from scrutiny. Michael Whitten tells the Fort Worth Star-Telegram that he wishes he'd been more careful drafting the language in that suit that we've been reporting on. Quote, this is not an anti-fracking lawsuit. Nothing could be further from the truth, end quote. I want to pause here. That response that you just heard shows they really still don't get it. This is not about the technical definition of fracking. It's about whether we're going to have an honest, reality-based debate about the costs of our energy policies. And look, those costs can get pretty ugly. Unsightly water towers, fracking wells, strange smells, and the kind of air and noise pollution that just about anyone would avoid if they could afford it. That's what the Lissy family lives with. They run an organic farm on the edge of the Eagle Ford Shale, which is a strip of oil and gas extraction that stretches from the south to eastern Texas. But the Lissys, well, no surprise, they don't have the money or the lawyers or the connections of ExxonMobil CEO, and they have to live with those costs.
It just makes constant noise. They have bright lights on all night long, and that one was completed last summer, and it flared nonstop for a year.
We're standing on the road. We own that side of the road, and this is the neighbors where they're doing some massive frack job. Obviously, you can hear the noise, pretty loud, sometimes really echoes late at night, but that flame's almost always going. We don't feel safe having cattle or anything right here.
There you see the other side of the tracks. And I think that's why our debate over environmental justice is also a debate over social justice. Because when you get down to it, even these oil executives are environmentalists when it comes to their backyard or their oceanfront views. Yes, it's environmentalism for the 1% and the Industrial Revolution for everyone else. Joining us now to explain all this, the former mayor of Dish, Texas, Calvin Tillman, who actually left Dish because he feared the effect of fracking in his town and its impacts on his family. He was also featured in the documentary Gasland. Welcome. Tell us about your experience and any reaction to these reports.
Well, thank you very much. You know, in Dish, we were basically forced from our home because of the air pollution that was caused by the oil and gas industry. Our children began getting nosebleeds in the middle of the night, you know, multiple nights a week, and it basically forced us to move because of the health of our children. And so it's pretty disappointing when the CEO of one of the companies that do this sort of activity is complaining about something that's far less invasive that's going in his backyard than what his industry put into our backyard. And you know, we were made out to be unreasonable when we spoke out, and some people eventually filed lawsuits of their own against the oil and gas industry. They acted like we were unreasonable, and yet, you know, here we got the CEO of one of these companies who's complaining over a water tower. I'm pretty sure the water tower doesn't cause his children to have nosebleeds at night.
And when you look at some of his responses, at least through his counsel, do you feel like, quite honestly, he doesn't get it?
Absolutely, I don't think he gets it, and I think that, you know, when I was moving from Dish, I offered people just like him the opportunity to come and live in Dish, and none of them took me up on that opportunity. You know, what I wanted is I wanted them to bring their children to live in the same environment that they were forcing me and the people of Dish, Texas to live in.
You know, you say that, it's interesting. A lot of writing and political organizing works around that idea. I mean, there's that famous book, Nickel and Dime, where a writer, Barbara Ehrenreich, tried to live at the poverty line and try to share with people what that's like. As we've reported on MSNBC, there are some legislators in certain states trying to do that on the minimum wage to make the argument that it's hard to live on the minimum wage. And you're talking about arguably something that, from a health perspective, can be even more dire. What does it take to you think wake up sort of the elites, the business people who are doing this, and the political elites to what you're talking about?
Well, I think that you're seeing some of it now. You're seeing what they really believe, that they don't believe that they should have to deal with the same pain and suffering that they're dishing out to other people. And so they need to come and they need to feel some of the pain, and they need to see the damage that they're doing, and they need to feel that up close, because until they do that, you know, they're just going to keep living in their high-end homes and their elite neighborhoods where the activities that they're getting rich on can't happen.
Yeah, and let me read to you a statement from Exxon. We of course, have been tracking their views of this, and they've said two things. One, they've said that Mr. Tillerson's home issue is a private matter, and then two, more broadly, they've said, look, the safety of people, communities, and the environment is the top priority for all responsible companies and authorities working to develop unconventional gas resources, end quote. What do you say to that? Their argument that there is basically energy demand for this, and they try to do it safely.
Well, unfortunately, I've heard that story for about the last 10 years, and I've yet to see an instance where they were doing it safely and responsibly and respectfully. And you know, this is personal to me too. When I'm run out of my dream home, and you know, to save the health of my children, so I don't have to worry about what they may have or get somewhere down the line. And so this is personal to me too. And so I just don't give anything that he says any credibility, because I've had to live in what he is saying is responsible and respectful, and it's not. This industry is not being responsible and respectful. They are running over people. The minute that you question them, they start to threaten you, and then they try to attack your character and everything else if you speak out against them. And so they're not the industry that Mr. Tillerson wants to purport them to be. Yeah, they're completely the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, Calvin, I appreciate you speaking out. I mean, in some sense, from your own arguments and what you've shared, it's too late for your particular home, and yet you've made this a cause that you want to share. And I know that's why Josh put you in the feature. It's why Chris Hayes has continued to report on these issues, at least for the sake of other people, if not your own history. So, Calvin Tillman, appreciate your time tonight.
All right, thank you very much. I do want to point out that just about 10 miles up the road from Mr. Tillerson's horse ranch in the city of Denton, Texas, currently they're doing a referendum to ban fracking in the inside of the city limits, and this is, you know, basically in the heart of drilling country. They're attempting to put a referendum up to ban drilling in Denton, Texas. Yeah, and that's a story we'll also continue to keep our eye on. Calvin, thank you for your time. And this isn't just in Texas, folks. It is across the country. We're going to look at the cost of fracking to all of us. That's up next.